The rain was cold. It fell like needles on Marcus's shoulders as he sat near the burned-out shuttle wreck, warming his hands over a tiny flame. He had landed on this deserted alien planet 3 days ago. Supplies were low, and rescue was uncertain. The place was silent, no signs of life, except the wind. And the mud. Marcus opened a protein bar and placed a few rations beside his bag. Just then, he felt something move. A small shadow darted past behind him. He turned quickly, grabbing his flashlight. The food was gone. What the? He stepped into the rain, shining the light. There, just beyond the tree line, a small figure. Ran, thin, fast, holding his rations tightly. Marcus didn't get angry. He wasn't that kind of man. "Hey," he called. "Wait, I won't hurt you." But the figure didn't stop. Marcus sighed, grabbed his jacket, and followed. He had questions. Who would steal food out here? And more importantly, why? The forest was thick and muddy. Trees with purple vines and tall blue grasses reached high above. Rain dripped from every leaf. The little footprints in the mud were easy to follow, small, bare feet. Whoever it was, they were not wearing shoes. After a few minutes, Marcus saw the figure again, a child, no older than 7 or 8, with thin arms and messy white hair. Not human. The skin was light blue, the ears long and pointed. The alien child ran again. Marcus hesitated. He could go back to his fire. But something inside him, something deep, told him to keep going. The child wasn't just stealing. He was starving. The chase wasn't long. The child disappeared into the ruins of an old stone structure, half buried in the hillside. Cracks in the walls let the rain fall through. Moss covered most of it. Marcus walked slowly, careful with every step. Inside, it was dark, wet, cold. He saw the child curled up in a corner, holding the food tight. Marcus raised his hands. "I won't take it back," he said gently. "You need it more than I do." The child didn't speak. He looked afraid, but not aggressive. Then Marcus saw something else, a shape lying behind the child. Still, not moving. A woman. She was thin. So thin her bones showed under her pale skin. She looked older than she was, her face tired and sick. Her breathing was slow. Her clothes were wet and torn. One arm was wrapped protectively around her stomach. Her eyes opened slightly, but there was no fear in them. Marcus kneeled. "She your mother?" he asked softly. The child nodded. Marcus placed his backpack on the ground and pulled out a thermal blanket and more food. He gave a protein bar to the child and placed water near the woman's mouth. She tried to drink, but her hands shook too much. "She's too weak," Marcus whispered. He looked around the broken room. No heating, no medicine. Nothing but rocks, cold air, and death waiting in the corners. The boy had stolen food to save his mom, and no one had helped them. Until now, Marcus set up a portable heater and gave the child one of his own dry shirts. He lit a lamp and covered the mother with the blanket. The child sat close to her, holding her hand. "What's your name?" Marcus asked. The boy said nothing. He only looked at his mother with wide, worried eyes. "It's okay," Marcus said. "You don't have to talk. I'll stay here tonight. I'll help." He leaned back against the wall and watched the rain fall through the broken roof. Somewhere, deep in the galaxy, war was being fought. Ships were flying. Leaders were giving orders. But here in the cold ruins, an alien child had risked everything for a piece of food, and a human had chosen to follow. Not to punish, but to understand. The night was long, and the rain didn't stop. Marcus sat in silence inside the broken shelter. The alien child had finally fallen asleep, curled up against his mother's side. The woman's breath was shallow, her skin cold to the touch, and her pulse weak, but she was alive. Barely Marcus watched over them like a quiet guard. His own body was tired, but his mind wouldn't rest. How long had they been here? Days? Weeks? The mother looked like she hadn't eaten in a long time. If the boy hadn't stolen that food, she would have died tonight. At sunrise, the forest was covered in mist. The heavy rain had turned the ground outside into a swamp. Marcus stepped out to check the area. His boots sank into the mud. Birds with glowing feathers called in the distance, but there were no signs of danger. When he returned inside, the boy was awake. Still silent, but alert. Marcus opened a packet of dry fruits and gently handed it over. The boy hesitated, then took it. He ate carefully, like every bite mattered. Marcus knelt in front of him. "I'm Marcus," he said. "Do you? Have a name?" The boy looked at him, eyes unsure, then pointed to his own chest. "Luto," he whispered. Marcus smiled. "That's a strong name, Luto." The child didn't smile back, but he didn't look scared anymore. Later that morning, the mother tried to sit up. Marcus helped her gently. Her eyes blinked slowly as she tried to speak. Her voice was dry and weak. "Don't hurt him. I'm not here to hurt either of you," Marcus replied softly. "I just want to help." She stared at him for a moment, then nodded. "My name is Ilari," she said, barely audible. "He's my son." Marcus gave her more water, piece by piece. She could only drink a little. "You can't stay here," Marcus said after a pause. "You'll die in this place." Ilari coughed, then gave a weak smile. "We've already died." "In many ways, no," Marcus said firmly. "You're still breathing. That means there's hope." They needed to leave, but the outpost was at least 20 kilometers away. There were no roads, only rough paths, ruins, and the wild forest. With Ilari too weak to walk, Marcus would have to carry her. He stepped out again and gathered strong branches. Using rope from his gear, he built a makeshift stretcher strong enough to hold Ilari. It wasn't perfect, but it would do. When he brought it inside, Luto clutched his mother tightly. "She'll be okay," Marcus promised. "But only if we move." Ilari's lips trembled. "You're risking too much for strangers." Marcus met her eyes. "No one should die alone. Not while I'm alive to stop it." By noon, they were ready. Marcus lifted Ilari onto the stretcher, gently wrapping her in the blanket. Luto walked close, holding her hand as they moved through the ruins. The forest loomed ahead, wide, deep, and wet. But Marcus didn't hesitate. Step by step, they entered the wild. Branches scratched his arms. Mud pulled at his boots. Strange plants hissed when touched. The air was thick and humid, buzzing with insects that glowed in daylight. Luto stayed close, never letting go of the stretcher's edge. He didn't speak, but he helped whenever he could, clearing small branches, watching for loose rocks. Marcus kept his focus. His body hurt. His muscles burned. But he didn't stop. He had carried heavier things during the Warmo gear, wounded soldiers. But this was different. This was a mother and her child. Hours passed. The sun disappeared behind thick clouds. They stopped. Under a large tree to rest, Marcus gave Ilari sips of water. She looked pale, but there was more color than before. "You're different," she said softly. "Most humans don't help our kind." Marcus looked at her. "Then they're not the kind of human I want to be." She closed her eyes and whispered something in her language. Luto leaned in and nodded. "What did she say?" Marcus asked. Luto spoke clearly for the first time. She said, "You are light in a world full of smoke." Marcus didn't know how to reply, so he just said, "Let's keep moving." The journey wasn't over, but something had changed. 3 Strangers once separated by species and silence were now walking together, connected by something deeper than words, hope, and Marcus knew he would get them to safety, even if it cost him everything. The rain stopped just before sunset. The forest was quiet now, but not safe. Strange animal calls echoed from deep within the trees. Marcus, carrying the stretcher with Ilari, moved slower with each step. Luto walked beside him, silent but alert, holding a sharp stick he had found earlier. He wasn't just a boy anymore, he was becoming a protector too. Marcus had hoped they would reach the human outpost before night, but the land was rougher than he expected. Thick roots tangled their path, and the ground was uneven, slippery with wet moss and sharp stones. They needed shelter for the night. "We can't go farther," Marcus said. "We rest now." Luto nodded and looked around. A few minutes later, they found a half-buried building covered in vines and roots. It looked ancient, probably part of an alien city long destroyed by war or time. The roof was still strong. The walls weren't perfect, but they would block the wind. Marcus sat down the stretcher gently and pulled out his flashlight. He scanned the inside of the ruin. No creatures, no movement. Just dust, rubble, and silence. This will do. He cleaned a corner and placed Ilari there on a dry patch. Luto helped gather leaves and dry branches for fire. Together, they made a small, warm flame in the center of the room. For the first time in days, Ilari didn't look like she was dying. Her eyes were still tired, but a bit brighter. Her fingers slowly reached out to Marcus as he handed her a heated ration pack. "Thank you," she whispered. Marcus gave a small smile. "You're stronger than you look." Luto sat beside her and shared the food. He ate fast clearly, still hungry, but made sure his mother had the first bite. Marcus watched, quietly amazed by the bond between them. They had nothing. No safety, no home. Yet they still loved each other with everything they had left. After dinner, Marcus set up a motion sensor at the entrance, just in case anyone got too close in the night. He sat near the fire, stretching his sore arms. Then, for the first time, Luto spoke willingly. "Why did you follow me?" Marcus looked at him. "You stole my food," he said with a half smile. "I was hungry," Luto replied. "I know." A pause. "You didn't yell," the boy said. "You didn't hit me." Marcus nodded. "Because you weren't stealing out of greed, you were trying to save her. I saw that." Luto lowered his eyes. "Other humans, they shot at us once." Marcus frowned. "I'm not like them," Ilari stirred. "I was once a diplomat," she said, voice low. "I met humans." During the early peace talks, Marcus looked surprised. "Really?" She nodded slowly. "That was before the collapse, before the sickness spread. My husband died trying to find medicine. We fled to this region. No help ever came." Marcus listened carefully. "How long have you been hiding?" Ilari closed her eyes. 2 years. 2 years. Of surviving alone with a child in ruined forests and dead cities. No rescue. No allies. No comfort. Marcus looked into the fire. He had seen war. He had seen pain. But this was something else. Later that night, Luto fell asleep with his head on his mother's shoulder. Ilari, half awake, whispered to Marcus, "You could have walked away. Left us." "I couldn't," he replied. "I wouldn't." "Why?" He paused. "Because someone once saved me when I was young. Ha! I don't even know their name. I swore I'd repay that by helping others one day." Ilari gave him a faint smile. "Then maybe we were meant to cross paths." Marcus chuckled softly. "Maybe." The wind howled outside the ruin, but inside, it was warm, safe for now. Marcus didn't sleep much. His hand stayed near his weapon. His ears listened for trouble. But his heart felt lighter in the darkest part of this dead world. They had found something rare, not a home, not safety, but a beginning. The sun had not yet risen. Cold morning fog wrapped around the ruined shelter like a ghost. Inside, the fire had died down to soft embers. Marcus sat against the wall, blinking away sleep. His body ached from the long journey, but he didn't complain. Luto was still asleep, curled beside his mother. Alari's breathing was slow but steady. Her color had improved. The warmth, the food, and the medicine Marcus gave her had helped. But they still had a long way to go. She was not out of danger. Marcus quietly stood, stretched his arms, and walked outside. The air was heavy with mist, and the forest was eerily silent. Too silent, suddenly. There was a sound. Crack. A branch snapped somewhere deep in the trees. Marcus froze. He slowly reached for his pistol and crouched low behind a broken pillar. Another sound, footsteps, not animal-like, too careful, too precise. Scavengers. He whispered to himself. He had heard rumors. Ruthless bands that roamed abandoned planets, stealing supplies. Taking prisoners, sometimes worse, whoever they were. They weren't friendly. He slipped back inside the shelter and knelt beside Ilari. Wake up, now. Her eyes fluttered open. She could tell something was wrong. What is it? We may have company. Stay low. Don't move. He shook Luto awake. The boy stirred, confused, then saw the fear in Marcus's eyes and sat up quickly. Marcus grabbed his backpack and started packing supplies quietly. He threw a quick glance at the door. The footsteps were getting closer. There wasn't time to run. Not with Ilari so weak. Marcus whispered to Luto, "Help me carry your mother." Quickly, but quiet, Luto nodded, determined. The boy moved fast, surprising Marcus with his strength and control. Together, they lifted Ilari onto the stretcher. The old building had a collapsed wall at the back just large enough for them to slip out unseen. Marcus took the lead. Pushing through thick vines and wet leaves, he didn't speak. His focus was sharp. Every step had to be silent. They moved slowly, carefully, deeper into the forest. Behind them, the sound of boots grew louder. And then voices. Rough, alien, not human. "They were here," said one. "Fire still warm. Find them. No mercy." Marcus's heart pounded. They were being hunted, but he didn't stop. Branches slapped his face. Mud sucked at his boots. Still, he moved forward, guiding the stretcher through uneven ground. He found a dry cave under a large tree, root hidden, low and tight. Not perfect, but it would do. "In here," he whispered. They crawled in. Ilari coughed weakly. Luto sat beside her, holding her hand tightly. Marcus pulled branches over the opening, masking their scent and view. Then they waited. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Then a shadow. Someone walked past the entrance. Ko held his breath, hand gripping his weapon. The figure paused, sniffed the air, then moved on. Silence returned. They were safe. For now, later that afternoon, Ilari opened her eyes and whispered, "They're slavers." Marcus looked at her. "They roam dead zones," she continued. "Looking for the weak. I've seen what they do." Marcus clenched his jaw. "They won't take you. I promise." She smiled faintly. "You say that like it's easy. It's not. But I mean it." That night, no fire was lit. They ate cold food in the dark. The forest was alive with noises, animals, insects, and distant voices of the hunters. But in that hidden cave, the three of them formed a quiet wall of trust. Marcus stayed awake most of the night, watching the entrance, his eyes sharp, his heart steady. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing. He would not let anything happen to them, not while he breathed. The next morning, fog covered the forest like a heavy blanket. Marcus rubbed his tired eyes. He had barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard footsteps or imagined the whispering voices of the hunters echoing through the trees. But nothing had come. Not yet. Inside the small cave, Ilari was sleeping again. Her face was pale, but her breathing had improved. Luto was sitting beside her, gently running his fingers through her white hair. He looked up at Marcus. Is she going to die? Marcus sat down beside the boy and didn't answer right away. Not if we move fast, he finally said. There's a human outpost about a day's walk from here. If we can get there, she can be saved. Luto looked at his mother again, then nodded. Then let's go. They left the cave an hour later. Marcus carried Ilari on the stretcher, and Luto walked beside them. The ground was wet, the forest still dark. Marcus used his knife to cut through the thick brush. But he kept his ears open for any strange sounds. The silence around them felt dangerous, too quiet. That's when they saw it. A trail of black smoke. Rising above the trees, Marcus stopped in his tracks. What's that? Luto asked, stepping closer. Marcus narrowed his eyes. Could be a campfire. Could be the slavers. He didn't want to risk it, but the smoke was coming from the direction of the outpost. If the slavers had gotten there first. We need to know, Marcus said. But we're not walking into a trap. We go around. They made a wide arc, using the higher ground to approach the smoke without being seen. As they neared the edge of the ridge, Marcus dropped low and crawled forward. Staying behind the tall grass, what he saw made his stomach twist. The human outpost was burning. One of the defense towers had collapsed. The walls were blackened. Smoke rose from the supply station. Bodhi, some human, some alien, lay still on the ground. Luto crawled up behind him and gasped softly. They attacked it. Marcus whispered. They got here first. He felt cold. This had been their only hope. The only place where Ilari could get help. Now it was a graveyard. They backed away slowly and returned to the woods, keeping their heads low. When they stopped, Luto sat down on the wet ground and didn't move. Marcus wanted to say something to comfort him, but he couldn't lie. Ilari opened her eyes weakly, noticing the silence. Where are we? Marcus sat beside her. The outpost is gone. She closed her eyes again. I knew it, she whispered. Hope never lasts long. No, Marcus said. We make new hope. How? We survive. After a short rest, they moved again, heading away from the burned outpost, deeper into unknown territory. The forest thickened. Strange bird calls echoed above. Twice. Marcus stopped to hide from movement in the trees. They were being hunted. Again, the slavers had likely seen them at the ridge, or followed their tracks. Time was running out. By late afternoon, they reached a rocky area, near a cliffside. From here, Marcus could see across the valley trees, mountains, and, far away, another settlement. Not human. Possibly neutral. Possibly dangerous. But it was a chance. Marcus pointed. There, that's our new goal. It's far, Luto said. I know. Can she make it? Marcus looked down at Ilari. Her eyes were closed again. Her skin pale as ice. She has too. Suddenly, a loud crack rang through the trees. A shot, then another. Then shouting, they were under attack. Marcus pulled Luto down behind a rock and rolled Ilari's stretcher out of sight. Stay down, he shouted. Blaster fire hit the tree beside him. Bark exploded. Marcus returned fire with his pistol, hitting one of the attackers. The others spread out, shouting in their alien language. They found us, Luto cried. Marcus scanned the area. They were surrounded. He looked at the edge of the cliff. Below was water. A steep fall, but survivable dash, maybe. He had no choice. He turned to Luto. Hold her tight. We're jumping. Luto's eyes widened. What? Marcus didn't wait. He grabbed the stretcher, threw a rope around his waist, held Luto's arm, and ran toward the cliff. A final shot rang out. Behind them, then they jumped. They fell hard. The wind roared in their ears. The water hit like a hammer. Marcus sank deep before kicking upward, gasping as he broke the surface. Luto screamed beside him, still holding the stretcher. They were alive, but the river was fast, and the current carried them away. Behind them, the slavers stood at the cliff's edge, angry, shouting, but unable to follow. They had escaped, now, the river dragged them far. The current was strong, filled with rocks and broken logs. Marcus held on tightly to the stretcher with one hand and to Luto with the other. He kicked hard, keeping all three of them above water. It felt like hours before the water slowed. They floated into a calm, wide pool surrounded by tall cliffs. The sound of a great waterfall echoed in the distance. Mist filled the air, sparkling. In the golden light of a setting sun, Marcus dragged the stretcher to the shore and collapsed beside it, coughing and gasping for breath. Luto pulled himself out and quickly checked on his mother. "She's breathing," the boy whispered. "But she's still so cold." Marcus forced himself to sit up. His body ached. His clothes were soaked. But they had escaped. That was all that mattered for now. "We need fire," Marcus said. "We need warmth, fast." They gathered branches, moss, and dry leaves from under stones and thick roots. Luto found a pile of dry sticks under a leaning boulder. Marcus used his emergency flint to start a flame, and within minutes, a small fire burned brightly. He wrapped Ilari in dry cloth from his pack and sat her close to the flames. Her lips trembled, but she moved slightly. That was a good sign. Then Luto looked up toward the cliffside behind them. "There's something there," he said. Marcus followed his gaze, built into the base of the cliff, half hidden by plants and thyme, were the remains of an old village, stone houses, broken stairs, and hanging bridges made of vines and bones. "Abandoned," Marcus whispered. Luto stood. "We should go look." Marcus hesitated. "It might not be safe." "Then I'll go first," Luto offered. Marcus raised a brow. "You're brave. I want to help." They moved together, carefully stepping over roots and rocks as they approached the forgotten village. The air smelled old like dust and stone, but no signs of recent life. No fires, no voices, no traps. Inside the first building Marcus found a dry bed of hay, cracked walls, and a pile of dusty blankets. "This could work," he said. "We can move her here. She'll be warm, out of the wind." Luto's eyes lit up. "It's better than the forest." They returned to the camp and carefully carried Ilari up to the stone room. Marcus placed her on the dry bed and lit another fire inside, using a chimney hole built into the wall. The warmth filled the space quickly. Ilari opened her eyes again, weak but aware. "Where are we?" "A village," Marcus said. "Old, empty, but safe." She looked around, her voice raspy. "I remember stories. Long ago, my people lived in cliff towns. Before the wars." Marcus glanced at the stone carvings on the wall, images of tall, elegant figures with glowing eyes and gentle faces. Not warriors, not slavers. Maybe once this had been a peaceful place. That night, Marcus explored the village alone, checking every corner. He found a locked storage door deep in one of the larger buildings. Using a small charge from his gear, he broke it open. Inside were old tools, rusted metal, worn fabrics, but also sealed containers of dried food, preserved alien herbs, medical roots. He returned quickly and crushed some of the herbs into boiling water. Ilari drank it slowly, her eyes closing in peace. "This place," she whispered, "feels like home." The next morning, they worked together to clean the space. Ludo washed clothes in the river while Marcus built a stronger door. They blocked off the path to the river to hide their tracks. The slavers would still be searching, but they had shelter now, a place to heal, a place to breathe. As the sun rose, Alari sat up for the first time without help. "You gave us life again," she said to Marcus. Marcus looked at her, surprised. "You stole my food," he replied with a small grin. "Guess we're even." She laughed softly. It was the first time he had heard her laugh that evening. Luto sat beside Marcus, staring at the fire. "Do you think they'll find us again?" the boy asked. "Maybe," Marcus said honestly. "But we'll be ready. We have walls now. We have higher ground, and we're together." Luto nodded, then looked up at him. "Are you going to leave us one day?" Marcus looked into the fire. He thought about his lonely life before this. "No," he said finally. "I think I've already stayed." Days passed, and for the first time in months, maybe even years, Lari could walk without falling. The hidden cliff village had become more than shelter. It had become a quiet place of healing. Marcus had turned old stone ruins into safety. He fixed what he could, built new supports, and even repaired a broken water pipe that now gave them clean water from the mountain. Luto smiled more often. He had stopped flinching at loud noises. He even began asking Marcus questions about Earth, about ships, about how humans lived. And Marcus, he felt something in his chest he hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. One morning, Ilari stood by the edge of the cliff. The sun touched her face, and her silver hair blew softly in the wind. She was still thin, still healing. But her eyes held strength again. Marcus stood beside her. "You're stronger," he said. "I was dying when you found us," she replied. "Now I wake up to the sound of my son laughing. That's worth everything." She looked at him. Truly looked. "You gave us back our lives." He gave a small smile. "You kept each other alive long before I came." "But no one cared before you," she said. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the river far below. Then Ilari asked, "What will you do now? Still planning to leave this planet?" Marcus thought about it. He had arrived on this world by accident, just looking for fuel and supplies. But now, it felt like fate. "No," he said. "I think I'm exactly where I should be." That evening, Luto came running to them from one of the far buildings, excitement in his voice. "I found something." Marcus and Ilari followed him to an old room filled with books and scrolls. This was a school, Luto said proudly. The walls had faded drawings, maps, stars, and symbols from Ilari's people. Marcus ran his fingers along one cracked wall and smiled. "Maybe we rebuild this. Teach again." Luto's eyes sparkled. "Can I learn about Earth?" "You can learn about anything you want." Later that night, they all sat around the fire in their new home. The stars above sparkled through the broken roof. Ilari spoke softly. "Before the war, my people gave each other second names only when someone became family." Marcus looked at her, curious. "We never gave one to Luto," she continued. "His father died before we could." She turned to her son. "Would you like one?" Luto nodded shyly. Ilari looked at Marcus, and then back at the boy. "Then your name will be Luto Marone." Marone means hope born from a stranger's hand. Luto looked up at Marcus. "Is that because of him?" Ilari smiled. "Yes, because of him." Marcus felt something strange in his chest. Warm and deep. He wasn't just a helper now, he was family. But danger still lived beyond the trees, and Marcus knew it. One day, gathering supplies near the edge of the valley, he found signs, footprints, burn marks. A crushed communicator left behind. The slavers were still searching. He returned quickly and warned the others. "We're safe here." Marcus said. "But we must be ready." Ilari nodded. "We've survived worse, and now we have you. I won't let them take anything from you again," Marcus promised. They trained in the mornings, Marcus, showing Luto how to hold a tool, how to hide silently, how to spot danger. He taught Ilari how to use the emergency flare gun. She practiced each day until her hands stopped shaking, and slowly the three of them were not just surviving anymore. They were preparing. One afternoon, Luto painted something on the inside wall of their home. Marcus saw it later that evening. It was a simple drawing, three figures standing together, holding hands. One tall, one small, and one with long white hair. Behind them was the cliff, the village, a fire, and stars above. Underneath, in alien script, it read, "The day we became." 1. Marcus felt his throat tighten. He hadn't cried in years, not since the war, but standing there, looking at that drawing, he knew he had found something he never knew he was missing. A reason to stay, a reason to protect, a reason to live. That night, with the wind whispering through the trees and the fire crackling low, Luto leaned against Marcus's side. "Can I call you something?" he asked. "Sure," Marcus said. The boy looked up with bright, gentle eyes. "Can I call you?" "Dad." Marcus didn't speak right away. He just nodded and pulled the boy close.